Here are 5 evidence-based foods that can help prevent diabetes, lower inflammation, and improve the way your body regulates sugar in the bloodstream. Number 1, fermented dairy. Now, I was really surprised to hear about the research around fermented dairy, but there was a meta-analysis of randomized controlled trials published in Nature, a top-tier journal, that found that a daily dose of probiotics, so that's both single strain or a combination of multiple strains, so different bugs, bacteria, yeast, that kind of thing, in patients with type 2 diabetes, lowered HbA1c, which is a marker of the last couple of months of your sugar regulation, i.e. how high your sugar level was in your bloodstream, fasting levels of sugar, fasting insulin levels, the hormone responsible for putting sugar into your muscles, into your fat cells, into your liver. It also lowered total cholesterol, triglyceride levels, inflammation levels measured by CRP, and both systolic and diastolic measures of blood pressure values. Pretty phenomenal, if you ask me. It also lowered the risk, overall risk of type 2 diabetes, and all you needed to eat is around 80 to 125 grams of yogurt daily. That's actually been shown in another study to lower the risk of type 2 diabetes by around 14% in healthy and older adults. What on earth is going on here? Well, if you look at this image that I've got up here, you'll see the difference between dysbiotic, i.e. on the left-hand side, what happens when your gut is unhealthy, i.e. there is an imbalance of gut microbes in your system. You have higher levels of inflammation, you have higher levels of insulin resistance, so your cells are resistant to the hormone that drives sugar from your bloodstream into areas where it can be utilized effectively for energy, so that's your fat cells, your muscle cells, and your liver cells. Instead, when you have homeostasis, fancy word for balance, in your gut microbe system, you're going to be more insulin sensitive, i.e. you're going to be less resistant to insulin. You also have lower levels of inflammation, and you have better levels of permeability from your gut to your bloodstream. So your gut is less leaky as well. That's a colloquial term. It's sort of a bit of a misnomer, but people understand what I mean by less leaky gut. So the way in which probiotics can potentially improve your gut is by increasing the diversity and the richness of your gut microbiota that stimulates the production of short-chain fatty acids that nurture the inside of your large intestine, particularly something called butyrate, which is a very important short-chain fatty acid that helps lower inflammation, increases insulin sensitivity, and also reduces the likelihood of the leakiness that you find in someone with an imbalanced gut. So fermented dairy is one way in which you can introduce more probiotics into your diet. And if you are vegan or you're vegetarian and you don't want to have dairy in your diet for whatever reason, you can use live cultures that are added to things like coconut milks as well, or coconut yogurt. So there are lots of different ways in which to get probiotics into your diet. Fermented dairy appears to be a good way of doing so. The second is black rice or other whole grains. So barley, buckwheat, rye, oats, the steel cut oats, millet. These are all great types of whole grains. Black rice is one of my favorites because it has anthocyanins in as well, which is a type of flavonoid that is found in lots of different brightly red and deep colored purple ingredients, so red cabbage, red onion. But black rice is also a whole grain, so it's got a collection of B vitamins, trace minerals, extra fiber. These are fantastic to lower the risk of type 2 diabetes. Cohort studies have shown that just an additional daily dose of 30 grams of whole grains is tied to 13% lower risk of type 2 diabetes. And this is lowered further to 25% by increasing the intake of whole grains up to just 50 grams per day. So in randomized controlled trials, whole grains can improve fasting blood glucose levels and can have some modest effects as well on the other markers, HbA1c, that I've mentioned before too. What might be going on? Well, you've got several nutrients and phytochemicals, soluble fibers, resistant starches, magnesium, zinc, selenium, potassium. These all have improvements or can have improvements on your body's ability to regulate sugar. In addition, we've talked about this before, but the viscous fibers, things like beta-glucans, can reduce the glycemic level, i.e. the sugar level in your bloodstream by slowing the digestion of carbohydrates and promoting the growth of specific microbes in your large intestine that regulate sugar more efficiently. The extra compounds found in whole grains, but particularly black rice, one of my favorites, these are phenolic compounds. These can help hamper oxidative stress, reducing inflammation, and inhibit things like alpha amylase and alpha glucuronidase activities, which can improve your body's ability to regulate sugar as well. So try and swap white rice for black rice or red rice or wild rice. It is a very easy thing to do, and the studies show that just that increase of 50 grams per day can have that impact on your sugar levels. Just a quick one. If you're enjoying this content, you will love my mini series on inflammation. I go through the different types of foods that you should be having, what inflammation actually is, plus lifestyle practices to reduce inflammation. You can get it for free right now in the link in the caption below. Back to the podcast. Number 3 are flavonoid-rich fruits. I'm talking about berries, apples, grapes, oranges. There are so many different types of flavonoid-rich ingredients. We've already mentioned flavonoids, but the amount of variety, the number of flavonoid-rich ingredients you can get into your diet can correspond to a lower risk of type 2 diabetes. And the reason why I can say that is because there was a recent cohort study of over 100,000 middle-aged adults. This was published in Nutrition and Diabetes, and they found that eating an average of just 6 servings of flavonoid-rich foods per day, so 6 servings, not of the same berry, but actually a mixture of all those different colorful ingredients. So it could be red onions, red cabbage, berries, apples, was associated with a 26% lower risk of type 2 diabetes. There are also some interventional studies, so randomized controlled trials, where flavonoid intake had a statistically significant benefit in glucose metabolism and also improving your sensitivity to the hormone insulin that again is driving sugar from your bloodstream into the organs where it can be utilized for energy. The reason why we might observe this effect is because these ingredients are quite powerfully anti-inflammatory. They drive oxidative stress down. They're also involved in the regulation of insulin-responsive glucose transporters, also known as GLUT or GLUT4, for example. That's just one transporter that sits on the cell membrane and absorbs the sugar molecules indicated by insulin to be taken up by the cell itself. How much do you need? Well, around 200 milligrams of flavonoids, and that's really easily done. That's around 50 grams of berries. So if you're having a handful of berries, it could be frozen or fresh. Fresh, if it's in season, is best, but frozen is perfectly fine. And particularly the ones that are high in flavonoids, so things like blackberries, black currants, blueberries, they are particularly high in these flavonoids. Then try and get some of that every single day. And if you can, try and get 6 servings of these flavonoid-rich ingredients. Get as much variety as possible. Don't just have it from the same ingredient. Try and get it from all those differently rich colored ingredients. Number 4, yellow and green vegetables. So think spinach, carrots, sweet potato, butternut squash. These lower the risk of type 2 diabetes. They're top sources of things like beta carotene. And in observational studies, a dietary intake of around 4 milligrams per day was tied to 22% lower risk of type 2 diabetes. Now you might be wondering, how much is 4 milligrams per day? Well, I'll just pull up this chart here that shows the amount of micrograms per cup of these different ingredients. The highest amount of beta carotene is found in sweet potato, but you can also get it from carrots, squash, cantaloupe, romaine lettuce as well. I know lettuce doesn't really get that much of a say when it comes to nutrients. A lot of people just think it's just water, but actually there are some benefits of having lettuce in your diet as well if that's what you like to eat. I personally go for the richly colored ones like carrots and butternut squash because they have higher amounts of these beta carotenes. So how are these potentially helping? Well, beta carotene is actually pro-vitamin A. It's a fat-soluble pigment found in these fruits and vegetables, and it's converted into vitamin A in the body, and that has strong antioxidant properties, meaning that it is highly effective in limiting the damaging effects of free radicals, which can actually impair the function of beta cells in the pancreas that leads to insulin resistance. So more of these in the diet actually can improve the regulation of sugar in your body. And I just want to pull up this this diagram here, because a lot of people think, okay, beta carotene, I can get beta carotene very easily through supplements. And this actually just proves the point that when you're consuming antioxidants from food itself, so if you look at diet here, you've got vitamin C, vitamin E, and beta carotenes. When you're consuming it from food, it reduces the risk of type 2 diabetes, as evidenced by some of the studies that we've talked about. When you're getting it from supplements, i.e. you're supplementing with vitamin C, you're supplementing individually with vitamin E and beta carotene, we are not observing the same anti-diabetic effects that we do with food. So this is all to say you want to be getting these nutrients not in isolation, but actually from food, because it's more likely that it is the sum of multiple parts of the food that are having these anti-diabetic properties. And number 5, coffee. This is something that you often find me drinking in these videos and on podcasts as well. 3 to 4 cups is tied to a 25% lower risk of type 2 diabetes compared to those who don't drink coffee. Now, the reason why is because coffee is more than just caffeine. A lot of people just think, okay, coffee, caffeine, that's probably what's having an effect. Actually, it's got thousands of bioactive compounds, a multitude of different phenolic acids, one of which that we've talked about on the podcast before called chlorogenic acid, abbreviated to CGA in some papers that you might come across. You'll also be pleased to know that decaf also shows benefits as well. So if you are sensitive to caffeine, like a lot of people are, you will still get a lot of these anti-diabetic properties and those benefits because we're preserving a lot of those bioactive compounds. How is this working? Well, beyond the caffeine, coffee contains all these different compounds like CGA, lignans, quinidines, caffeistol, and they again reduce oxidative stress and inflammation, which play a crucial role in blood glucose control. They also slow carbohydrate digestion by inhibiting salivary and pancreatic alpha amylase and alpha glucosidase as well. So this is all leading to a slower breakdown of carbohydrates, therefore a slower release of sugar into your bloodstream. It also improves glucose uptake. So on one side, you're reducing the speed at which sugar goes into your bloodstream. On the other side, you're improving glucose uptake by peripheral tissues by modulating that intracellular signaling. So they're telling the body, hey, we've got some sugar in the bloodstream. Let's put it into the liver. Let's put it into the muscles. Let's put it into fat. How much coffee do you need? Well, you need around 3 to 4 cups. And 3 to 4 cups is the equivalent to 2 espressos, so 2 single espressos. I tend to have 2 double espressos in the morning and mid-morning, and then in the afternoon I'll opt for a decaf option because I don't tolerate caffeine very well after 12 and it can disrupt my sleep. So you want to play that sort of game between having enough to have those benefits, but not having too much that leads to the detrimental impact on your sleep. And I have a bonus ingredient for you. It is sardines. There was a 1-year randomized controlled trial with 150 odd pre-diabetics aged over 65. They were randomized to either a control group and a sardine group. And the sardine group got 200 grams of sardine per week. After the trial, the percentage of people at the highest risk of developing type 2 diabetes was lower in the sardine group compared to the control group, but quite a margin as well. And the reason why may be because of omega-3 fatty acids, particularly EPA and DHA, which are the long chain omega-3 fatty acids. Again, these appear to be very anti-inflammatory. We talked about it from the brain point of view as well before. They're quite reasonably priced. They're really easy to find. And if you don't like sardines, you can get 2 other things into your diet that have a lot of omega-3. Those are algae oils. So you can buy those as supplements as well. And you can also get omega-3 from nuts like chia and walnut, but they tend to have the short chain omega-3 fatty acids rather than the long chain omega-3 fatty acids. You can still confer some benefits from those, but the best source, unfortunately, is still small fish. So that's small oily fish, mackerel, sardines, herring, that sort of those sorts of fish. Looking more broadly than just individual ingredients, which I don't really want you to focus on. I really want you to think about your overall dietary pattern. Eating these types of foods every single day could lower the risk of type 2 diabetes by around 42%. This is according to a systematic review that was published in 2017 in the European Journal of Epidemiology. Just 2 servings of whole grains per day. So that's 60 grams per day. I would probably put that up to at least 100 grams. That's enough for ensuring that you're getting that good dose of good quality whole grains. 2 to 3 servings of vegetables, so that's 160 to 240 grams per day. Getting those fruits, and I would opt for the flavonoid-rich fruits like the berries and the apples, grapes, those sorts of richly colored ingredients. And then the dairy serving that I would suggest would be fermented dairy, if you're going to include dairy at all. This has been shown to lower the risk of type 2 diabetes. Obviously, there are lots of limitations and caveats when we're looking at observational data, but this appears to be something that you can do to lower the risk of type 2 diabetes. I hope you found that helpful, those different ingredients and that dietary pattern. Pre-diabetes and diabetes is on the rise, so this is a very important topic. And if you can change your dietary pattern to something that is more Mediterranean in style, then this could lead to those benefits that we've just been talking about today. If you liked that episode, you will love the full library of Doctor's Kitchen podcast episodes, including this one I did with Dr. Robert Lustig, where we talk about sugar in all of its harmful forms and what you can do about it right now. You can check it out by clicking out on the link.